This has spoilers for The Terminalist Episode 1. I have used the footage in the plot, and I do not intend to infringe on the copyright held by the studio. I do not mean any disrespect for those who have poured so much into the show, and I only intend to add to the series and not take away. I've worked on this pretty much all of the past 2 weeks, and I hope you enjoy. I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that subscribe button. Welcome back to Terminal Vengeance, the only place where you can find everything Terminalist, including news, breakdowns, theories, interviews, and more. I will be breaking down the plot of The Terminalist Season 1, Episode 1, and then I will find the differences from the book and the Easter eggs. The episode opens on a funeral with Reese telling the story of how God had Gideon choose his men. A comparison is made with the SEALs always being ready and with being the tip of the spear. 2 weeks before, Reese and his team planned the mission in Soyac. They mention the SDF trooper and Donnie having a headache, which is later expanded on. We also learn that Cox gave the option for them to hand the mission over to the next troop. The team entered the tunnel quietly so nobody would have heard them enter, so the ambushers were waiting. Their dog finds a tripwire, and the team finds that the whole tunnel is rigged. They call off the mission. Just then, shots are fired at the entrance, trapping the men. Multiple SEALs are immediately killed by a bunkered machine gunner. These tunnels also funnel bullets both ways, so it's just a recipe for disaster. The SDF trooper starts to panic, and Boozer calls in the QRF of Rangers. The SDF trooper trips the wire, and some of the team is knocked out or killed. As Reese is unconscious, he has a memory of when he was home. This memory continues to appear throughout the season, and I will cover it more as we get farther along. He is then called back to reality by Boozer. Reese was unconscious from when the call was made to when the QRF arrived. We know from a little earlier that this is 10 minutes. Reese and his team are delirious and in disarray from the blast. The QRF arrives, and Reese learns that the only surviving members of Reese's troop are Reese, Boozer, and the 2 last members who died on the helicopter. The enemy moved troops to the high ground and technicals to the tunnel entrance, trapping Reese and his team. When the helicopter with Reese took off, this was the first time where Reese was really realizing that pretty much his entire team was dead. Reese calls home and tells Lauren that he is the last one other than Boozer. After this, he is interviewed/interrogated by NCIS agents. He learns that there was a lab there, but no sign of Connie, their target. The audio was altered according to Reese, and all evidence pointed against him. Reese visits the doctor, and we hear that Reese has a concussion, and the doctor wanted to hold Reese for more tests, but Commander Cox, who is also there, said that he was fine with Reese going home. The doctor also told Reese not to drink any alcohol, but he immediately ignores that by going to the base bar with Boozer. Kitty Brannick enters the bar and sits right next to Reese. She says, "Who we drinking to?" which definitely is not something you would say to someone dealing with loss. Reese is pretty annoyed, and he asks her if she is a contractor or reporter. Reese already was familiar with her work because he read her report on the over-reliance of soft units. He lets her know that he and Boozer won't be giving up any information, and she responds, "Who is Boozer?" And you can see him walking out, but he actually disappears a few minutes earlier. Boozer loads onto the plane with Reese, and they fly home. Reese was woken up in San Diego by an Air Force crew member. He was the last one off the plane, and he was there for hours. Ben Edwards, Reese's best friend, picks Reese up, and they discuss the mission. Reese tells Ben that it was a setup. When Reese gets home, he is met by Lauren and Lucy, and they talk just for a little bit in Lucy's room. Reese notices a drawing that plays a bigger part later on. He tells Lucy that he never saw it before, but she says that she showed it to him before he left. This is where we start to see memory issues. In the kitchen the next morning, Lauren and Lucy are talking to Reese, and he isn't paying attention. He even picks up a very hot pan of cinnamon rolls. Reese keeps on thinking about the mission. Reese gets a call and immediately rushes to Boozer's place. Right as he arrives, you can see the coroner's van leaving. We see Captain Howard and Josh Holder here for the first time. Reese shoves his way into Boozer's apartment, and he sees the blood splatter on the wall. Reese says that there is no way that he shot himself because he flew home with them. Holder says that this is impossible because he killed himself 2 days before. Reese visits Warcom to discuss his concerns about the mission with Admiral Pillar and Captain Howard. Captain Howard presents himself as Reese's ally. We learn that every member of Reese's team will receive a Silver Star and that the SecDef will attend their funerals. This scene transitions with a bell like a lot of scenes on the beach and with certain characters. Reese talks to Ben on his boat about Boozer's disdain for 9mm and how he would have offed himself with a .45. This scene is really the first scene where Reese even starts to doubt himself when he asks Ben if he is losing his mind. Later at home, Reese looks up Katie, and most of her articles are about soft units. One article about Katie says that she used to be a New York Times reporter before she joined the more independent Vultstream News. Reese emails Katie and he asks her if he was alone when they met in Incirlik. Hartley repeats the same line over and over again for each SEAL at the funerals. While we see clips of the funerals, we see a clip of Reese researching their target. Lauren gets Boozer's flag because his wife didn't attend and nobody attended Boozer's ceremony. Hartley talks about Lauren's running background, and at this point we start to like Hartley. We feel this connection. Hartley says she isn't a politician. She speaks her mind and does what she wants. She says that she will lend her hand for whatever he needs. This presents a very different picture of Hartley than from the book. Hartley says that she recommended Reese for a Navy Cross, which is the second highest honor. He didn't get it in the show, but it would be cool if it showed up later in later seasons. He asks if SEALs are still operating because of the breach, and she says that the informant was found with a hole in his head and bribe money. We learn that Reese was researching Connie's next move. She says that he will be the first to know when he is killed. Lauren asks Reese if he has money for the babysitter and if he called the clinic, but he really isn't paying attention because he notices a car possibly tailing them. They have a deep moment in the car when they get home, but this is immediately interrupted by the car that Reese saw following them, parked one door down. Reese sends Lauren inside to get Lucy, and he grabs his pistol and performs a press check. Reese uses the slight distraction of a car passing by to get right next to the car door. He then abruptly opens the door, points the pistol, and shouts to see the person's hands, only to find out that this is Katie. We then see Reese and Lauren in the garage with Katie. Lauren offers tea, but Reese cuts the response by saying it'll be quick. Reese's no-crap-given attitude really shines through here and at the bar. When she passes him a piece of paper, he doesn't even reach for it. This paper is Boozer's death certificate, which shows that Boozer died days before Reese arrived. Katie says that overwork and exhaustion are responsible for his team's death, not him. When she says that, he tells her it is time to go. The next line really defines the interactions between Reese and Katie's mission. She says, "You might think I'm the enemy, but all I care about is the truth." After she leaves, he remembers drinking with Boozer, and then he sees an empty seat next to him, remembering that possibly Boozer was never with him at all. Reese tells Lauren that he needs to go to the clinic because he believes something happened to him during Operation Odin Sword. At the clinic, the doctor tells Reese about the engram, which is the title of the episode. He explains that it is the holy grail of brain pathway research. He says that when the brain pathways are disrupted, conflations occur, overlapping old memories with new ones, and this is all possible from a concussion. Reese begins the hour-long deep brain scan. Around Reese, we start seeing red flashes and hear the sound of gunfire. His surroundings transition into the tunnel when he remembers the trooper triggering the explosions. Only now he remembers it being Donnie. When the scene flashes, the person's appearance goes back and forth from Donnie to the SDF trooper. In the show, red is used in important scenes like I mentioned earlier, and the flashes were from muzzle flashes, but this could also show that there is a conflation happening in the scene. There were fires in the tunnel and red spots on the scan of Reese's brain, which is also cool. Reese asks the doctor if everything is good, but he doesn't get a response. Someone makes him come back out of the scanning module, and Reese sees a masked assassin with a standard Glock. While Reese asks the assassin if the coward's way was how they killed Boozer, another assassin comes from behind and puts a pistol right next to Reese's head, mimicking a suicide shot. Reese knew he was there before because he saw him in the reflection of the glass. This assassin's mistake was putting it too close where Reese could gain control. He grabs hold of the pistol and kicks the other guy. This kicks off an epic fight where Reese doesn't hold back and goes for the eyes, groin, and even repeatedly punches the solar plexus. During the fight, Reese is significantly disadvantaged and has to fight off a severe headache. After losing this pistol early on in the fight, the second assassin draws a blade and slashes Reese. Reese uses his gown to grab hold of this guy's arms and pin him against the wall, while the first assassin starts to choke Reese. Reese is able to make the blade go through the second guy's arm, putting him out of the fight. Reese looks into the operator's eyes and sees a familiar set. The first guy takes Reese to the ground in a chokehold. Reese bites this guy's arm, elbows him in the face, and lights this guy up. He then shoots at the second guy while he runs out of the door. Reese takes another shot at the downed guy's head, and while some people might say this was completely unnecessary, Reese knows that a lot of people have been killed by people they thought were dead. Reese pursues the first assassin but doesn't see him in the halls of the clinic. Reese performs a press check and notices that this is his SIG from earlier on in the episode. Reese recalls putting this weapon in his home safe and rushes in his Land Cruiser. He calls Lauren and tells her to get Lucy and leave, but gets a voicemail. He calls the police and speeds into the driveway, leaving the car on. An interesting detail is Reese only had his underwear on when he was at the clinic. In this scene, he's wearing pants, a shirt, and shoes. I would think that he would skip this just to get home as soon as he possibly could. Reese starts to clear his house when he sees a horrifying image. His family dead and bloody on the floor. He drops to his knees and screams out in agony. This scene cements our bond with James Reese and helps us root for him no matter what. This scene is the most powerful ending for any pilot episode I've seen. Now that's the plot of episode 1. Now let's get into the Easter eggs. The show opens up with a scene in the future, then jumps back to the past, just like the start of the book. The song that is playing in the team room is Bad Company. The tunnel was made to mimic the pathways of the brain, which is really crazy. In the team logo, the Kraken has a red eye to symbolize, I think, revenge, and a white 7 to symbolize perfection in Team 7. It also has an A for Alpha. And with Donnie's audio, he actually did say those things, but I think he was talking about the trooper. He was the one who's chasing after him, and I think he was responsible for taking care of the SDF trooper. Because you can hear those things in the tunnel. And the cape is red, and that is in most of the conflations. In the book, the last two members, other than Reese and Boozer, died at the hospital. Donnie's head could be seen completely severed. In the book, his body was missing from the waist down, and a different member had their head severed. Reese had to use his helmet and his nods in the book. In a deleted scene, Reese got the machine gun and mirrored how Reese had to borrow gear to be the most effective. In the book, Reese never heard of the man they were sent after. Whereas in the show, Reese and his team had been tracking this guy for a long time. The two NCIS agents who were interrogating him were Robert Bridger and Daniel Stubbs, just like the books. Reese was admitted to the base hospital in the book, and he immediately went to be interrogated by NCIS. Reese found out that he and at least two other members of his troop had very similar tumors. At the bar, they drink Hooten Young whiskey, and the founders of that company are former Army Delta. Liquid Courage is the song playing in the bar. Boozer was also wearing gaiters. In the book, Reese didn't get home till 2 weeks after the mission. He is wearing a Hill People gear backpack. Reese used Hill People gear in the book, but it was a different piece of equipment, but that shows up later, and I'll talk about it again there. The song that is being played here when Reese is picked up by Ben is Simple Man, which is about someone finding who they are, and it puts a certain person's state of mind into perspective. And this ship that they pass by is called the Big Gray One. At home, Reese adds creamer to his coffee, and you can see Black Rifle Coffee in the background. Where I Want to Be is the song that is playing, and you can also see some honey next to the Black Rifle Coffee. We also learned that Boozer flew home with the team just like in the books. Reese found out that something happened to Boozer right after he landed and checked in at the team building. The jacket that Reese is wearing is a Land Cruiser jacket, which of course is the car he drives. Pilsner is the name of the admiral in the book, instead of Pillar. Some of my favorite Easter eggs from this scene are the Bill the Goat picture on the wall and a USNA diploma. This shows that he went to the Naval Academy instead of regular college, and Bill the Goat is of course the mascot of the Navy midshipmen. Pillar is wearing almost every ribbon that he has. Admiral Pillar told Reese to lose the 5 o'clock shadow when he is in garrison, which shows how much of a rule and formality follower he is. When the scene cuts to Reese's home, you can see Lauren's Subaru Forester instead of a Jeep Grand Cherokee like the book. The email that Reese used to email Katie is hootenyoung@protonmail.com. And Reese drank Hooten Young whiskey earlier with Katie. Reese has multiple weapons, blueprints, blades, and weapons tools on the desk, and I'll make sure to make a full breakdown on this later. Ben and Reese's family is in attendance at funerals, and there's someone sitting next to Ben, but they say that Lucy didn't go there. So my question is if this is one of the troops' daughters, and if security took her place, and that could possibly show how Hartley doesn't care. The sunglasses that Reese is wearing are Gator sunglasses, which are a team favorite. The photo that they used for Donnie Mitchell at the funeral is an Arnold Schwarzenegger photo Easter egg, and he is, of course, Patrick's father. When the Reeses get home, he backs his car in just like in the books. I believe that the watch Reese was wearing is an Aries watch, which Jack Carr has collaborated with and supported through the years, but I couldn't get a good enough look. The part in the book that they talked about being killed by enemies that you thought were dead was when Reese was fighting the same exact people. In the book, Reese's family was killed earlier on and the police were already there. Lauren was covering Lucy just like this, but by the time Reese got home in the book, Lucy was in the ambulance. Lauren was also pregnant in the book and pretty far along. This episode covers the first 10 chapters of the book. I will be doing a watch party. I will be reading the first 10 chapters. We'll all do that separately. Then we will watch episode 1 together. We'll have a discussion afterward. Check that out in the pinned comment. I hope you enjoyed my breakdown, and if I missed anything, make sure to let me know in the comment section below. I have a lot of videos coming up soon, just like my breakdown of the intro that I've already started, and I found so many Easter eggs. And then I'm also starting the breakdown of episode 2. And we have some big interviews coming up, and I even have a video on when we can expect Jack Ryan Season 3. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss any of these. Like the video, and share the video with your fellow James Reese fans. See you next time on Terminal Vengeance.